Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Charlotte. I am the trauma-informed teacher. This is a channel all about teacher self-care, about family, work-life balance, and just some suggestions and tips that will help you with your classroom, but also hopefully help you with your personal life. So today I am going to jump right in. We are working in this classroom on a lot of different projects. I have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science students, and so I'm going to take you through a typical planning session. I've already mapped out some things, so let me show you what I have been doing so far. So the first thing that I always like to do whenever I'm working on a unit is I like to take a look at my state standards and figure out how everything can go together. This year I'm trying a project that I have done in the past when I taught elementary school, but I've never tried it in middle school science. So I'm working on this project through Journey North, which is an Annenberg media project, and it tracks the seasons across the globe. Students get to report data and work with other students in other school districts, which is really amazing because it incorporates technology, it incorporates map skills, it incorporates data collection and proper measurement techniques, all these different things, and then how to report their results. So I have taken a look thematically at my standards, and this has challenged me a little bit to think differently about how I'm teaching these standards, but I think in the long run the students are going to remember better doing it through a project than doing it as separate standards. So we're going to be planting tulips, and some of the things that I have to teach students in the beginning of the year for 6th grade is the scientific method, but also just a process in general. Science is a process, and sometimes we start in different places in that process. So I taught them that. I taught them how to do claim evidence reasoning for reporting their information. We talked a little bit about the position of the sun and the earth in relation to the sun and how that affects seasons across the globe, because that's really going to tie right back into that tulip project. We also did some temperature measurement activities where students went outside and collected data about temperatures in different places so they could understand that temperature is an average and that it's also different in the same area depending on whether you're in the shade or whether you're in direct sun, things like that. So we talked a little bit about heat and what it means, that it's actually moving atoms, which we'll go into more later when we get to our matter unit. But lately, I have been focusing on the needs of plants. So we talked about the temperature and how the sunlight is important for photosynthesis, but we also talked about the properties of water and how a plant makes use of water through capillary action. So our next logical place to jump to is soil formation, which is actually a different section of our standard. So by doing this as a thematic project, I'm kind of like skipping around in our standards, but it's actually pretty cool because it all goes together. So students are getting a really good overview and tying it back to this one thing. So this week, my next logical place to go is soil formation, composting, and human impacts on the environment. So that's what my week is all going to be about. And then I've kind of just like mapped out what activities do I want to do in different days. So this is, don't mind me in my little chicken scratch, but this is what I have written so far. I found the Generation Genius video that was discussing human impact. It does cover more than what we're learning about soil, but I wanted to give an overview in general of how human impact affects the earth, and then get more specific with how it affects soil, because that's going to connect our concepts of water and good clean water that plants need to our connection of the soil formation and the type of soil that plants need to thrive. So we're going to start off with this Generation Genius video. I'm going to have students record interesting information on Post-its, and that will give them an opportunity to share out later. And then I'm going to put them in breakout groups and have them read different articles about problems with soil, which is where I can incorporate some of the information about soil in Africa and how that's affecting their problems with food availability because they're having trouble getting things to grow in their soil. So I want to find a good share out technique. I want to have students fill out some sort of a concept map in their breakout groups to hold them accountable for their discussion, and also give them an easier way to share out. One thing I really have to talk about when I do my lesson planning, or have to think about is with this group, is making sure that all of them get to move at some point during the lesson because they just need it. This group is definitely athletic and movement oriented. I have a lot of students that have some attention issues, and moving helps them. So I want to take a look at all of my days that I've planned and make sure that I have adequate movement in all of these days so my students get to engage in the material the way they learn best. For homework, I'm going to have them save some scraps from their vegetable peelings and things like that, because I'm going to talk to them about composting. And I have a compost project that I started 3 years ago with my students in 6th grade, and every year I just keep sharing it with the next group. So it's pretty interesting to look at. In fact, my 8th graders asked about it the other day. They're like, are our compost things still out there? And I was like, yeah. They're like, we want to look at them. So they like the fact that this has been going on for several years now. So we're going to get the compost containers out. We're going to have them draw what they see. Then we're going to talk about composting, how it works. And students are going to add the scraps from their lunch and also anything they brought from home. And we're going to do a little exit ticket. So I have to make sure that in this process here, I give them plenty of time to move around. Otherwise, this could be a very sit-down lesson. Day 3, we're going to do a soil sample from our tulip garden beds that we identified when we did the temperature study. We had to follow certain parameters for Journey North, and the amount of sunlight in a day was one of the parameters, and also it needs to be an average temperature for the area. So it had to kind of match the temperature that was being reported at the same time for our local area. So we've already identified where we can plant the tulips, and now we're going to do a little soil sample and see what kind of shape the soil is in and if we'll need to add anything. So while we're out there, I'm going to have students pick up trash around the area, because that will help them think about our human impact study that we did on Monday. I also want to share with them the soil that is good for the tulips, and I want them to make a video in the end, and this is where they're going to get to work together, move around, talk, use their creativity to create a short video about whether that soil in that bed is a good choice for the tulips or not. Day 4, I'm going to assign a project to them, and this is a project that we did the year before, and it went really, really well, because the next thing that I have to teach after we get done with this whole plants unit is I have to teach about the planets, and I'm also going to talk more about, sun across the globe in that unit, but I want to talk to them about our progress with making a colony on Mars. And so students are going to learn about soil on Mars, which is called regolith, and they're going to have to try to come up with ways to enrich the soil, and then they're going to present their ideas in a Google slide presentation. So that will take them a couple of days. I'm going to first give them like a little intro, then let them think about what they want to do, start their research, and then the second day they'll finish up their products. So that's basically what I have planned for 6th grade for this week. Obviously, after I plan all of this, then I'm going to enter it into here in my plan book in a simple way, and then I'm going to pull some of the resources that I need. I'll have to make copies, make things like my exit tickets. So it's a multi-step process that we're going to have to go through here, and I have to make a list for myself of each day's activities, what I'm going to need to do during my plan time or after school to make sure that I'm ready for the next day. All right, so that's my process. So keep in mind that I started out with my assessment. We are given the released EOG questions, and they update them every so often. I'm hoping we get an update soon because they've changed the way that they're doing the testing. So hopefully maybe this year they might post some new questions, maybe in the spring or in January, that show some of the different types of questions. But I really like starting off with the release test questions as a guide for myself. And so then I use that as like a backwards design check for myself. So the types of questions that I'm going to ask on their test, it's going to be the same style of questions that they ask on the EOG. So if I look at the release questions, plan from those, make sure that I'm covering everything that the questions cover, and then also go back to the standards and make sure there's nothing that's missing, then that gives me a pretty good guide for how I can map out my units. And I always do one of these first, and then I will come back and decide, what makes the most sense, what order am I going to teach it in, and I'll just flow through the web until I get through everything that's on my unit web. So that's how I plan. I like to do this because it allows me to really see how everything connects, and it also allows me, when I'm pulling standards for different places, to make sure I'm not missing any of the elements, because I can go back and I can look at these webs later and be like, okay, what did I teach for this part? Because I'm going to have to come back and fill in gaps later on when I finish this project. Students will not have everything for each section, but they're going to have a really good firm foundation for some of the units that I have to teach them this year by doing this project. So it's definitely worth it. And I do, like I said, think students remember things better when they're doing something that's hands-on and they're connecting ideas together. I just think that it aids their memory. So I'm willing to give this a try, see how it works this year. Hopefully it's going to improve my scores. If it doesn't, then we'll try something else later on. But I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be interesting for the students, and I think that it's going to allow for a lot of opportunities for engagement. So all right, well, that is it for today. I'm going to let you go because I have to make my list for tomorrow and get out of here so that I can prep my lunch and all those great things that I need to do so I won't be stressed in the morning. Everybody, thanks for tuning in with me, and thanks for planning with me. As always, don't forget to work hard, be kind, and amazing things will happen. Until next time, bye.